If we take a look in the past decades, the United States has gone head-to-head with some of the world's biggest oil-producing nations: Iran, Russia, Iraq, and Libya. Now critics argue Venezuela could be next. With US warships edging closer to Venezuelan waters and thousands of Marines reportedly on standby, the question looms large. Is this the beginning of a regime change in South America? Or is Washington targeting drug cartels under the guise of intervention? And if so, what could it mean for the region and the world? Stay with us, this is the full story. The Trump administration has quietly but steadily built up its military presence near Venezuela. 3 US Navy destroyers and an amphibious assault group are now in the Caribbean, carrying more than 2,000 Marines. The official reason? To fight drug cartels. But critics say that's just a cover. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, one of the loudest voices on Venezuela, recently told Congress, quote, "We must dismantle the Maduro government. This is not about drugs, this is about regime change. Venezuela is not just another country, it's an oil superpower, communist government in the USA backyards that favors China, Russia over American interests. Similar like Cuba. With over 300 billion barrels of proven reserves, it has the largest oil reserves on the planet, bigger than Saudi Arabia." During his campaign, US President Donald Trump once slipped saying, quote, "If I were president, all Venezuelan oil would be American." That one sentence revealed everything. This confrontation is not simply about democracy or corruption. It's about who controls the world's biggest source of energy. But Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is not backing down. Facing a $50 million US bounty on his head and open calls for his removal, Maduro announced the mobilization of 4.5 million members of the Bolivarian militia, a massive civilian reserve force designed to resist any foreign invasion. In a fiery speech, Maduro said, "We defend our seas, our skies, and our lands. No empire will touch the sacred soil of Venezuela." For him, this is not just survival, it's about resisting what he calls the imperial aggression. Washington claims Venezuela's recent elections were fraudulent. They also accuse Caracas of harboring Hezbollah operatives, running drug cartels, and even allowing Iranian drone factories to operate inside the country. Senator Rubio went further, alleging that Russian and Chinese secret services are already active inside Venezuela. To US policymakers, Venezuela is not just a failed state. It is a potential enemy stronghold backed by America's greatest rivals. That brings us to the biggest twist: foreign support for Venezuela. China has openly condemned the US buildup, warning Washington not to encircle or destabilize Caracas. Since 2007, Beijing has invested over $67 billion in Venezuela, mostly through oil for loan deals. It is now Venezuela's most important partner, both politically and financially. Meanwhile, Russia is doubling down too. Reports from Russian military channels suggest Moscow is preparing to deliver Shahid-style one-way attack drones to Venezuela. Russian soldiers are already believed to be on the ground, providing training and support. For both Moscow and Beijing, Venezuela is a frontline in the global struggle against the US in this great power rivalry game. This situation feels like history is repeating itself. In 1962, the world nearly went to nuclear war during the Cuban Missile Crisis, when the Soviet Union placed weapons just 90 miles from Florida. Now the US fears Russian and Chinese influence in Venezuela, just 1,200 miles from Miami. In the contemporary context, as Russia doesn't want NATO in Ukraine the same way the US also doesn't want Russia and China in Venezuela. It's a dangerous mirror image. Military analysts say the US is preparing for multiple invasion options. By air, increased drone and surveillance flights near Venezuelan borders. By land, cooperation with Colombian forces to prepare cross-border operations. And by sea, the deployment of 2,000 additional Marines on warships positioned near Venezuela's coast. Caracas insists it is ready, but the balance of power is clear. Militarily, the US holds overwhelming superiority. The real question is not whether Washington can invade, it's whether it can control Venezuela afterward. To be clear, it does not seem that the current deployment of USA is going to retreat empty-handed. Internally, Latin America itself is deeply divided over the crisis. Mexico has rejected any foreign intervention, calling for a dialogue instead of force. Colombia's President Gustavo Petro warned that US military action would have grave consequences. Brazil under President Lula voiced serious worry, emphasizing non-intervention as a cornerstone of its foreign policy. But not every country is against Washington. Argentina's President Javier Milei, a close Trump ally, supports US claims of Venezuelan narco-terrorism. Ecuador and Paraguay have even begun labeling Venezuelan networks as terrorist organizations. The region is split, reviving Cold War-style divisions in the Western Hemisphere. Why does this matter beyond Latin America? Because Venezuela's instability threatens the global oil market. The US has already sanctioned Iran and Russia. If Venezuela is also taken offline, the world will be left with fewer oil suppliers than ever before. That could mean a spike in global oil prices, rising inflation, and even the risk of a global economic slowdown. India and China, both heavy buyers of Venezuelan oil, would be directly hit, and the shockwaves would ripple worldwide. So where does this lead? The US Navy, political backing in Congress, and a justification of fighting drugs. On the other, Maduro's militias, Russian drones, Chinese financing, and strong anti-intervention voices in Latin America. This is not just a Venezuelan crisis anymore. It's a geopolitical flashpoint where American power collides with the interests of Russia and China right in the US backyard. Will the Trump administration press ahead with a military strike, or will global pushback force Washington to negotiate? Either way, Venezuela has become the new stage in a dangerous game of great power rivalry. And just like past US interventions in Iraq, Libya, and Afghanistan, what begins with promises of quick victory may end in years of chaos. What do you think? Is the United States preparing for a full-scale invasion of Venezuela, or deployment merely to destroy the drug cartel? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dive analysis on global conflicts and geopolitical news. Thanks for watching.